I've got Cam Ward at 19. You got him at 8. How much does positional value go into your big board? Is that just simply because, hey, he plays quarterback, you got to take a chance on him?
It matters to me, but I've definitely over the years loosened up on it. I don't play the game of, hey, if it's a quarterback, like they just have to be so much significantly higher. Cam Ward, I think, has starting quarterback ability. He's a big-time playmaker. He's on the right trajectory of dialing in on his recklessness, and he makes big-time throws. I think he could be a franchise quarterback. I think there is a lot of risk associated with Cam Ward. I won't put him in my top 5 because I don't feel the same way with the top 5 players in the draft. Like, I will be very surprised if Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Ashton Genty, Mason Graham, and Will Campbell are not longtime NFL players. There's a world, a reality, where Cam Ward just doesn't take care of the football, reverts back to his old self a little bit, and is, somebody's backup in 3 years from now. Because that's just the reality of it.
Welcome to the opening bell of the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. Trevor Sikkema, Connor Rogers here with you guys for a very exciting episode. We are updating the top 50s and we're going to war, baby. We're getting straight into the octagon. We're throwing fisticuffs as Connor has updated his top 50 big board and I have updated the top 50 of the PFF big board. And today, we're doing battle. We're going to talk about it. We're going to go through every single player that we have on the updated top 50. I think it's going to be a fun episode. Hopefully, we're still friends after this, Connor. But how you doing, my friend?
I'm good, man. This is a good time to do this right before the Combine. Obviously, the Combine brings about a ton of not only player movement, but also expansion of big boards. So it's nice to I like to call it, build that foundation of the 50 players. I know you do this more than me because you're like the Wizard of Oz of the mock draft simulator. Like all those rankings, you're constantly adding players. I hadn't done a top 50 since September. So now we've done so many positional rankings on this show throughout the season that I've had them all by position. But when you actually stack the players as one collective group for the draft, and you're also comparing it to essentially before the college season went into full effect, it's obviously jarring to see how things change. So it's been really, really cool to drop that today for NBC.
Don't worry, I didn't miss the subtle shot there. Calling me the Wizard of Oz is a compliment, but then also calling me a fraud behind the scenes in it.
After I said it, I'm like, I meant more like behind the curtain pulling levers, but not like the guy that, no spoilers today, okay? Or for Wicked. Are you a Wicked guy?
So I haven't seen it. No,
okay.
I have not seen it.
It's a 10 out of 10, so you will eventually.
Damn.
But yeah, it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. I know I'm not really like a musical guy, but
Do you like The Greatest Showman? Did you watch The Greatest Showman?
I did not, but I heard it's great.
Oh, brother.
Yeah, I know.
Goated.
I know.
Absolutely.
Well, then I'll watch Greatest Showman. You'll watch
Goated.
Wicked, and we'll come back to the podcast.
Yeah, and then we'll have a musical only episode during the summer when only the true sickos are still.
I was gonna say the sickos
listening.
and true addicts are still around for that.
By the way, I see the USA jersey. I had to also don the USA hat.
Well done.
As the U.S. hockey team is in the championship game of the Four Nations here on Thursday, taking out Team Canada. We already beat them, so.
I mean, it's like, really, we have to do this again?
Yeah, right. It's kind of this like, okay, well, I mean, if we beat them, do we get the rubber match? Like, what are we doing here? Is it really a round format? But very proud of the boys. Very proud of the USA boys for getting it done the first time they faced Canada. Dropped the game to Sweden right before, but it's all right. It's all right. It's all right. Got to
rested a lot of guys. It doesn't matter.
We're ramping up.
Yeah,
We're ramping up.
Exactly.
We see
Four Nations.
We see rivalry week here in a couple of days. Dude, this has been so much fun. I love this.
Way to nail in an era where all-star formats are dying, right? Like literally dying. The NFL, which is a little trickier because the injury factor, the Pro Bowl just has never been more relevant. NBA had a really tough weekend in terms of their all-star format. I always have a soft spot for baseball because I've just grown up loving the home run derby, and I still think the derby is good. I think the game has even lost a lot of luster. But man, did hockey said, screw the all-star format and the skills competition. We're just going to straight up do a Four Nations a year before the Olympics, which is like an elite way to ramp up to that because now you get the taste of not just the U.S. and Canada, who have incredible programs, but Sweden and Finland, who also have incredible international programs, as we're 1 year out from the Milan Olympics. This was just a absolute dynamite, and it's so cool to see how serious the players have taken it.
You know, reluctantly, there's a lot of bolts that are on Team Canada, so it's a little bit of, rooting against my boys because Sorelli, Hagel, Point, they all play for Team Canada. John Cooper's the head coach at Team Canada.
Yeah, it is very Tampa heavy.
I know. We got good hockey players down there. I don't know what to tell you, but
that's how it goes.
It's all about...
You got Gensel.
I was going to say, it's all about Jack Gensel in this house, baby.
It's all about Gensel on the U.S., so that's been a nice spot for you guys.
Yeah, I agree, though. This is a very fun way to do this all-star format, and I think a lot of leagues, like you said, are really struggling with this. The NFL is kind of trying to figure out what they're doing with the Pro Bowl. The NBA is, I think they're in the middle of this mess here, but hockey, it's fun, man. I mean, whenever you lace them up, I mean, it's just competitiveness all the way. What are the 3 fights in the first 9 seconds of the previous USA-Canada game?
Well,
so
you have the Kachucks playing on a line together.
Hell yeah.
Their dad, I believe it was in the 96 World Cup of Hockey, famously fought against Team Canada, and Keith was an absolute maniac. And so it was no surprising to see Matthew and Brady back-to-back. But JT Miller was the funniest one because... Of course, Matthew gets into a fight. Brady gets into a fight. And then it looks like they're finally about to play the game. And somebody just dumps a puck on net and there's a scrum around the goalie. And if you watch JT Miller, he just throws his gloves off in the scrum rather than really, and just is begging for anyone. Like, he would not be denied. He's like, I want to get into a fight as well. And he got Parenko, who's the biggest, he's like Godzilla on ice. So he was kind of a little bit of an F around and find out situation, but absolute electricity in Montreal.
And it's a good way to wrap this up as we get into these top 50s. JT Miller, not only a Tampa Bay Lightning legend, also a New York Ranger.
Two-time New York Ranger.
Oh, yeah, he was 2-time.
We traded him to the Lightning, and now he's back on the Rangers. Classic.
Oh, you love to see it. All right, boys, let's take it home. Let's take this Four Nations tournament. Make sure that we go into the Olympics next winter, and they know who the powerhouse is in the world when it comes to hockey. All right, let's dig into these top 50s. Very excited for this episode. It's going to be a lot of fun here. Connor's released his top 50 like you talked about earlier in the show over at NBC Sports. You guys can check that out. Please do so and support his work. Also, you can see my updated top 50 as we have it over on the PFF Big Board. I'll keep you guys updated on this. It's sort of going to be a little bit tough. We're changing the process at PFF to make it a lot better in the long term. But for a long time, the PFF Big Board has sort of just been the big board of whoever the lead draft analyst was. It was Mike Renner before me. Now it's sort of me. Now we're developing sort of like a scouting department at PFF to where we can have even more players on the big board. We can get a lot more info in there for you guys a little bit earlier. And so really the tail end of this year, but really into next year, it will be less of just my big board, certainly when we get into, I think, January and draft season of next year. But for now, it is still sort of my thoughts on these players in my top 50. So I think that we can go really just in increments of 10. I feel like that's the best way to do it. I feel like it's actually more suspenseful to start at number 1. Connor,
I agree.
And then build it down to see who just barely made the top 50 that we get to talk about there and get some guys who are sort of my guys in there throughout the process. So let's start at number 1. We're going to start at number 1 here. You read off your top 10, and then I'll read off my top 10. Then we have a little fun combo about it.
All right, so number 1 for me is still Travis Hunter. I feel like consensus is going to land at my number 2 player, Abdul Carter. I'm still rocking with Travis Hunter as the best player in the draft, whether he plays wide receiver or corner. I mean, feels like corner. I actually don't even want to guess at this point, just because the combine lists him a certain way. Like, I feel like, right? Yeah,
they list him at the DBs, but he also said like he's going to work with the wide receivers as well. So.
And he's been vocal about this the entire way, that he wants to do both. Either way, I think he is pretty special on both sides of the ball. Abdul Carter's number 2, the edge rusher from Penn State. Number 3, Ashton Genty, the running back out of Boise State. Number 4, Mason Graham, the defensive lineman from Michigan. 5, Will Campbell, offensive lineman from LSU. He's played left tackle. I think long-term he might be a guard. I still think he's the best offensive lineman in the draft. 6, Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State. 7, Mike Green, edge rusher from Marshall. 8, Cam Ward, quarterback from Miami. First quarterback, comes in at 8th overall. 9, Armand Membu, the offensive tackle from Missouri. And 10, T-Mac Tet McMillan, the wide receiver from Arizona.
So it's a lot of the similar names, just sort of in different order. Our 1 and 2 is the same. We are standing firm here on the show. Travis Hunter, number 1, and Abdul Carter, number 2. So, if you guys who listen to this show regularly and hit every episode, 1, we love you to death. Thank you. Shout out. You also know that the cornerback ranking episode is coming out on Thursday here for this show. So you're going to get a little bit of a sneak preview of sort of my cornerback rankings. I don't know if Connor threw his updated ones in there as he's kind of going throughout the week, but dude, Travis Hunter is an unbelievable football player. I mean, I watched him for the wide receiver episode that we did back in December, and you know me, the whole time I have been team play Travis Hunter at corner, and then you give him a handful of reps.
Yeah, I was the other way going into the year.
Right, but when we went through the wide receiver episode, I watched Hunter. I was like, God damn, this guy's good at wide receiver.
Right,
Am I really going to be able to hold this? Because I thought I was going through it logically, but he's so good at wide receiver. I watched him at corner. He's CB1. He is CB1 for me in this class. As good as he is at wide receiver, he is just as good, if not better, at the cornerback position, and that is while playing it full-time in both areas. I agree with you. I think he's the best football player in the draft. I also have Abdul Carter at number 2. I got Tet McMillan a little bit higher. I've got Tet McMillan at number 3. I got Mason Graham at number 4, so we're right around the same area there. Genty, same thing. You've got him at 3. I have him at 5. I have Malachi Starks at number 6, and you have him a little bit lower. I think I want to get to him in a second. I got Will Campbell at 7, so same area. Luther Burden is 8 for me. Jahdae Barron, the corner from Texas, is number 9. A little bit of a sneak peek of the cornerback episode that we can talk about here in a second. And then I have Tyler Warren there at number 10. So I think the big difference is that we have Malachi Starks at number 6 for me, Luther Burden at number 8 for me, and Jahdae Barron at number 9 for me. I know where a couple of those guys are, but where did you end up with Malachi Starks here for yours?
So Starks, I ended up at 26th.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a big difference. You had Burden where?
I have Burden at 8.
I have him at 24th.
Okay, so we'll talk. I want to talk about him in a second. And then where'd you have Barron? Where'd you have Jahdae Barron?
Barron, I am a little lower on. I had him at 30.
Okay, so let's start the conversation talking about Malachi Starks. So you got him in the 20s. He's somebody that was consensus. Well, was he consensus? Or
I had Winston as the top safety, and then he got hurt.
So you've been a little bit lower on Malachi Starks. I think than a lot of people early on, but it does, I do want to say, it does seem like national consensus is getting closer to sort of where you had Malachi Starks at the beginning of the season. So what do you see in Starks that kind of puts him in the mid-20s versus where some people, like myself, had him in the top 10?
I really like him a lot. I just never got to that point. My whole take was with Starks, who we've had in the top 15 of mock drafts on this show throughout the year, and is that I think it's so hard to be a safety that goes in the top 10 unless you really create takeaways. And Starks didn't really create takeaways in 2024, but when you watch the tape, he's a very, very fluid coverage guy that plays the slot. He can play free safety, but I mean, as a nickel, he's a really, really good player. They line him up even in the box. He's played a lot of special teams. He's a versatile weapon that can make life easier for a defensive coordinator because of his ability in coverage. I think he's a very clean tackler when he sees things and arrives in the timely manner. There was a couple times where I thought he was a tick slow and might have missed an angle, but I thought it got better. That's an aspect that got better from 2023 to 2024. And I do think he has ball skills. Some of this is about opportunity, but I like Starks a lot. I don't know if he impacts the game in a way that completely changes your defense in terms of like aggressive nature and takeaways and insane range on the back end at free safety. I think he's more of a more of a nickel cover guy that can play free safety, but I like him a lot. I just think he needed a little bit more ball production probably this year to make the jump from being a player in the top 30 that could easily go in this draft, top 20. I have no problem with that. rather than a guy that, is more top 15, top 10 kind of pick.
Yeah, and full transparency, as we often say that phrase here on the show, we haven't gotten to safeties yet. So what I have of Malachi Starks, a lot of it is rooted in some of what I saw this season, but a lot of what I watched when I gave him a full study this summer. And so I felt as though some of his lack of opportunity or some of his lack of production this year really stemmed from a lack of opportunity more than others. But I have talked to, a couple of draft analysts that I really respect throughout the industry that are more sort of on your wavelength, where they go, hey, he's a good player, I like him. Is he that like elite takeover type of safety that you would put in the top 10? I feel like I'm getting a little pushback there in that regard. But until we get to a final eval of him, I did still think that he was that high impact safety type of a player. So that's where I had Malachi Starks. You had Luther Burden more in the 20s. I still have him in the top 10. I have him at number 8. Talk to me about Burden. Where did he line up? Because he's wide receiver 2 for me at number 8. Where is he for you in terms of the wide receiver rankings?
Yeah, so Burden was behind, obviously, Travis Hunter, Tet McMillan, Emeka Egbuka.
Okay.
So I like Egbuka better than Burden.
Okay.
And there's a little bit of a floor-ceiling debate to be had there. I think Burden, we know about the drop-off this year that wasn't all his fault. If you watch the tape, some of the missed throws or the way the offense had to use him and some of the limitations of their passing game, were obviously problematic at times. This is somebody that 2023 tops 1,200 yards. This season, he didn't get to 700. So
yeah, it was not a productive year for him.
Right, that's not all his fault. And I think he does play bigger than his size. I like the way he goes over the middle of the field. I like how things look when he gets the ball in his hands, that there's a little bit of a lookout nature. He can make something happen after the catch. I mean, you go once again back to that 2023 season where he had over 700 yards after the catch, and he didn't even have 700 receiving yards this year. So there's a really, really great player on that 2023 tape. I think he's never going to be this jump ball monster, but I think he catches the ball in congested areas really, really well. I think where I get a little concerned is that the last 2 years he's been a slot guy. I know he played out wide in 2022, but he's a dense guy, but he's not 6 feet tall. Mm-hmm. Like when you look at number 1 wide receivers around the league, you're basically either big or you're an out of this world athlete. And
Sure.
Sometimes number 1 wide receivers are both. And there's nothing wrong with being a high-end number 2. It's just your usage. Like, do I need to play Luther Burden in the slot after I draft him all of the time? And how does that have a trickle effect on the rest of my offense? And then you look at, this year, as much as the offense and the quarterback didn't help, the yards per reception dropped like 3 full yards. I just didn't think he was making as many as explosive plays as we were accustomed to seeing. And I don't know if he got banged up. It feels like there was a couple times watching tape where he came off the field that he was banged up by something. But that also goes back to you should get the volume of a number 1, but you don't have the size I typically love at a number 1 wide receiver. And there are outliers in the league, but you look at all the size of like the typical number 1s or explosiveness, and they are built a certain way for a reason. So I like Burden, but this was definitely a step down from him this year for me, and I just think I'm more comfortable with the floor of the 3 receivers I had in front of him. While I think Hunter is a more explosive athlete, I think McMillan is imposing with his size, and I think Egbuka is just so much more rugged. The brand of football he plays, like I don't see any way Egbuka is not a very good pro.
Yeah. No, I think that's very logical. I think how you laid that out with Luther Burden. I believe he is more 2023 than he is 2024. When you look at Jekyll and Hyde, which one's the real Luther Burden? I think it's more of the 2023 version than the 2024 version. But if you are sort of taking his most recent football of a what have you done for me lately type of a viewpoint and sort of the tape, the most recent tape that he is giving us getting to this level, because I don't believe he was hurt. There wasn't anything that was holding him back, but it was not a productive season. I think that was more on Mizzou's offense. Is he a crazy, straight line athlete? No, I'll give you that. I think he's a pretty rare change of direction athlete, though. And when you give me that, I'm sort of a sucker for players who could do that, because that's also a key ingredient and a route for a potentially elite route runner and separator.
Yep.
Even when you get to the pro. So I'm sort of betting on that. I think the 2023 version of him is better. That's why I still got him in my top 10. I still believe in Luther Burden III. I have Johnny Barron from Texas at number 9. I'm actually going to save my analysis on him for the cornerback episode. It's called a teaser, folks.
I think that's a good idea. We don't want to...
We got to get you to come back. We got to get you guys to come back.
Yeah. We should save a lot of the DB analysis for that because we're going to be doing... We always do 90 minutes to 2 hours on each position group.
Yep. So I then had Tyler Warren at number 10. So that sort of rounds out the top 10.
Well, let me ask you one.
Okay.
Where do you have Mike Green?
That just reminded me of when Doctor Strange says to Thanos, "Let me ask you one time."
It was actually like pretty accidentally, eerily close.
What master do I serve? What am I supposed to say? Jesus? Okay. All right, you asked Mike Green. Mike Green's not far from me. He's 12.
Okay, so we're going to have this conversation in the next 10 anyway.
Yeah, he is right there for me at number 12.
I don't know why I'm asking you where you had him. I literally have your big board open in front of me on a monitor. I've been online
it's good.
before.
It's good podcast conversation. That's what we need. You got to think about the listener. Man. You're just always thinking about the listener. That's why you're a good podcast co-host.
Thank you.
I've got Cam Ward at 19. You got him at 8. I think it's worth at least asking the question at this point in time. How much does positional value go into your big board? Because for me, I try to give it a decent amount of weight. I've told you guys this before on the podcast that I'm trying to do something a little bit different this year where I have actually different boards. I'm going to have a film board. I'm going to have an overall board. But then I'm also going to have a positional importance big board because we do have a mathematical equation that we could sort of set up at PFF. We're kind of working through it. It's at the beginning stages. But we have a force multiplier by using our wins above average metric and sort of multiplying that and coming up with a math equation with the film evaluation that we have of a lot of these guys to sort of spit out okay, here's what we think of them just as raw prospects as how they are for the position. And now here's a multiplier that we have that correctly tells you how much that is valued. And there's a bunch of different layers. I'll be able to break down some more of it without giving away too much of the secret sauce. But I'll be able to break down a little bit more of that, I think, when we get into April and I get to set that up. But Cam Ward at number 8, is that just simply because, hey, he plays quarterback, you got to take a chance on him? Or where are you with positional value when it comes to these prospects?
So I do a hybrid of this, and I feel like a lot of people don't. Because obviously I have Ashton Genty 3rd overall. So people are like, oh, running backs don't matter. On this show, we often remind you that they do. But obviously it's weighted differently. Like a franchise left tackle is going to be a little different than a running back. So it matters to me, but I've definitely over the years loosened up on it. Like just 2 years ago, I had Will Anderson as the number 1 player in the draft. And obviously Bryce Young and CJ Stroud were really highly regarded quarterback prospects. So I don't play the game of, hey, if it's a quarterback, like they just have to be so much significantly higher. I try to at least paint the picture with the write-ups of like, hey, Cam Ward, I think, has starting quarterback ability. He's a big-time playmaker. He's on the right trajectory of dialing in on his recklessness, and he makes big-time throws. I think he could be a franchise quarterback. I think there is a lot of risk associated with Cam Ward where I won't put him in my top 5 because I don't feel the same way with the top 5 players in the draft. Like, I will be very surprised if Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Ashton Genty, Mason Graham, and Will Campbell are not longtime NFL players. There's a world, a reality, where Cam Ward just doesn't take care of the football, reverts back to his old self a little bit, and is, somebody's backup in 3 years from now. Because that's just the reality of it. But there's been quarterback prospects in the past where I haven't felt that way, and not victory lapping it anyway. I'm just kind of stating the obvious. Like, I didn't feel that way about Joe Burrow, for instance, right? I didn't feel that way about Trevor Lawrence, honestly. I had him ranked really highly. So, yeah, I think it's a hybrid for me. I think when you weigh it too much, it does the big board a disservice. Mm-hmm. But if you don't weigh it at all, it's hard for your audience to grasp that. So,
I think it's fair. Yeah.
So I've tried to find the right balance, but I think I do skew more towards like good football players on a big board is just what matters, and the mock draft will tell the story of where a guy's going to go on a curve.
I think that's a perfectly logical way to go about it. I think a lot of people ask us those questions, so I figured, with Cam Ward being at number 8, him number 19 for me, I feel like that would be a natural question that a lot of people would have, which we try to answer here. All right,
what you saying all that makes me realize if we have full-time jobs besides this podcast, like we could do the next 3 months this show 4 to 5 times a week with the amount of designations you can go. Like you could do a position value big board. You can do hey, here's my top 5. We had this conversation on defensive linemen, like odd front defensive line. Like that's how deep scouting goes. It's just that, we try to go as in depth as we can, but eventually you just do hit a time limit.
If you're watching this podcast and you're subscribed to it, I promise you, we are always going to be pushing the envelope to cover the NFL draft as best and as thoroughly as we possibly can on this channel. This channel, every single year, we're going to play the hits that you guys love to listen to and watch because it's also an entertainment factor of this show and this channel. But like what Connor said, there are plans down the road, and we're sort of running out of time a little bit this year. We'll try to implement as much as we can, but just giving you guys these little hints and nuggets of things that we are working towards next draft and the draft after that, and setting that up to where this is your favorite draft channel for a lot of reasons, and not just because hopefully it's entertaining for you, but also because we're bringing you all sorts of great information. So we're always going to try to do that. So, all right, 11 through 20. Give me your 11 through 20 here.
11, Walter Nolan, defensive lineman from Ole Miss. 12, Will Johnson, the corner from Michigan. 13, Amarian Hampton, the running back from UNC. 14, Kenneth Grant, defensive line from Michigan. 15, Emeka Ibuka, wide receiver, Ohio State. 16, Colston Loveland, tight end, Michigan. 17, Nick Scourton, edge rusher, Texas A&M. 18, Jalen Walker, linebacker / edge rusher, Georgia. 19, Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle, Texas. 20, Shamar Stewart, edge defensive lineman, Texas A&M.
We've got a lot of the same names once again. I think there's we can have the Mike Green conversation in a second. At number 11, I have James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee. Number 12, I got Mike Green, the edge rusher from Marshall. 13, Will Johnson, the corner from Michigan. 14, Kenneth Grant, the defensive tackle from Michigan. 15, Walter Nolan.
Oh, we got a samesies.
What?
Kenneth Grant, 14. We got a samesies.
Oh, you love that. You just love that.
You really do love to see it. It's like when we matched outfits last week.
Yeah, which was, totally planned. And, okay. So, 16, I have Josh Simmons, the offensive tackle from Ohio State. Fully understand that if his knee is more messed up and is going to hold him back from an NFL career, obviously that means a lot. There's another guy in my top 50 that we'll have that conversation with, not about the knee, but it'll be something else. So injury sort of goes into that. I can understand why he wouldn't be in your top 20 probably for that reason, and others maybe.
No, that's it.
Emeka Ibuka, I have at 17, so pretty close to you. Kelvin Banks Jr. I have at 18, pretty close to you. Cam Ward, 19, we already talked about that. And then rounding up number 20, I got Derek Harmon, defensive tackle from Oregon, who I spoke very highly of in the interior defensive line episode that we recently recorded. Before we hit Mike Green, if you want to hit on Mike Green, James Pierce Jr., where's he at for you?
This is actually the one I was more interested in talking about. I had him 27th.
All right. Okay. Do you have do you think he's just a speed rusher concerns?
Here's actually my weird concern building off that question.
Oh wow. You don't think he's draftable?
I don't think he's draftable.
Oh, geez. Okay.
27th overall, not draftable.
Damn.
He's an enigma, James Pierce. He's explosive. He's got length. He's very lean. Which we all know that. Yep. And that's fine. We just had this combo 2 years ago about Will McDonald, and Will McDonald just had double-digit sacks. Mm. He's been a pass rush win rate monster for 2 years in a row. Mm-hmm. We've talked, he misses a lot of plays, tackles. It's very bizarre. Like, he could have insane production if he finished 50% more of the plays he missed on. Mm-hmm. I think he's quick off the ball, but I don't think he's a great speed rusher. He doesn't know how, or maybe just can't yet, angle his way into the pocket like gifted speed rushers do. He's got a really good first step. he can blow by offensive linemen, but he doesn't win around the outside shoulder with bend and flexibility as much as I thought he would. So, and he's got to get bigger and stronger to be a 3-down defender. I think I've said this over summer, I think he has really good pound for pound strength, but when you watched him against the bigger tackles this year, you could see how he's just like outmatched in the run game. But he's an explosive guy with length, and he's been productive enough that these guys go where I still had him in my top 30. I think he's a DPR right now. I think if a coach works with him a little bit on how to master more of those finesse rush abilities, he likes to win with power a lot. Mm-hmm. And it's just hard to do with his body type. And I brought up Will McDonald in the beginning with the weight-wise, but Will was a much bendier prospect than him. So I like Pierce. I don't love Pierce like I thought I would.
You know, it's funny. It's a little bit of the opposite with me. I thought that I would be around the same range that you are. And I think for most of the season, I had James Pierce Jr. because I was a little bit skeptical of him going into the season. I had him more where you have him now. And when I went through final evals, I think the way that he played with strength that I was not expecting was something that just really stood out to me. And I think him being 21 years old and a true junior coming out, it makes me think that, all right, like you can put on a little bit more size. You are still kind of figuring it out. And do I wish he had more of a pass rush plan at times? Yes. Do I think he was a little bit better at leaning into sort of those speed aspects of how to win versus the outside shoulder? Yeah, but there's so much there, in my opinion.
You're right.
There's so much there for him to put on a little bit more extra weight, become stronger, be a more complete player. If you're taking a little bit of now, I don't blame you for this because I just said I think it was the interior defensive line episode, I am becoming more and more a player of, if I don't see it from you, I have a hard time convincing myself, yeah, but what if, what if he figures it out? What if he does all, and I'm more skeptical of that as a scout now than I used to be.
Because you've been burned by it, like everyone has.
100%.
Yeah.
Pierce is still one of those players that, I'll tell you this too, I can't wait for his combine results because there are times when he looks like a speed demon out there. But I also know he's a snap jumper a little bit.
Oh, he loves it. Loves it.
But here's the thing. That's a skill.
Without a doubt, you don't
as long as you are athletic enough to win when you don't time the snap count in an elite fashion, right? Because then I can say you're a great speed rusher, but then you also have some of these snaps where you anticipate the ball coming out of the center's hand so quickly, the offensive tackle's got no chance.
You know who's good at that? Von Miller.
Right. And but that's my comp for James Pierce Jr. No, he's not. He's not.
Next segment.
Yeah, that's it. Moving on. But if James Pierce Jr. ends up having an elite 10-yard split, a great 40-yard dash, all of a sudden I go, I'm in. Yep, great. Right. This is fine for me. I'll bet on this player. It is what it is. If he is less explosive than we think he's going to be, especially depending on what he weighs in when he gets to the combine, then I start to reevaluate things. And I'll probably be a little bit closer to where you are when it's all said and done. But I did love the film. I love that he played a little bit stronger. So I got him in the top. I got him in the top 12 because I just think of the potential of what this guy could be here.
One quick note: I fully am in line with you on Josh Simmons. You have him 16, but you brought up the injury. I was the opposite. I had him 31, but I wrote in the write-up, this is way too low if his medical check goes well at the combine.
Yeah.
Like, if I get good news on the knee, he will not be outside the top 30.
Yep. I think the rest of it, we talked about a lot of the interior defense.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Will Johnson a ton on the corner show.
We'll talk about Will Johnson.
What do you think of me having, we could kind of bridge the next tier to this tier, Amari and Hampton in the top 15?
Yeah, I think that, the more I'm thinking about the running back position with this class, I'm wondering if I'm just too low on it overall. Because you got Hampton at 13, and when I watch Hampton, I mean, there's just so much that he brings to the table. We talked about it in the running back episode. Sometimes I think he blurs the line between being urgent to get to the line of scrimmage versus not having as much patience as he needs to really let blocks set up and all of that. And sometimes that's something that can get fixed and with more playing time and more awareness and a higher football IQ, the more football you play. But there's just so much that he brings to the table that, like, if you told me that Omarion Hampton's just going to be one of the best backs in the NFL over the next 4 years, like, I'd get it. And so at that point in time, I've got him ranked at 25. Like, is 25 too low?
No.
Because I think he's a great pass protector, one of the best pass protectors in the class. And I think he's a decent receiver as well. So he brings you that full 3-down ability. So there's not a lot that I have to say about Omarion Hampton that I don't love. So is 25 just then too low for him? Because then you can go a little bit further. Cam Scatabo is near in the 50s. Dylan Sampson's right outside of my top 50. Caleb Johnson's right outside of my top 50. And I like these players. But am I just too low on them overall? I wonder if that's something that once I get through the initial bulk of, like, okay, we've gotten through all the positions and we got a lot of full scouting reports, running back is going to be one of those that's my first rechecks that I go, am I just, it's not that I'm seeing the player too differently. Am I just lower on their value overall when it comes to those big boards? So it's a great conversation that you brought up, and I'm glad that you did. But Hampton's a hell of a player, and I think when you bring that 3-down back ability, you're, especially at the size, speed, explosiveness combination that he has, it's hard to keep you too low on a big board.
I agree. I think we see him the same then. It's just a matter of kind of juggling, where you put
positional value a little bit for me. A little bit for me. You got Jalen Walker at 18. I have him at 32. So I got him at 32. I'm just, again, more skeptical of him being a full-time edge rusher at the NFL level. Really great athlete, super explosive,
I'm
dense,
very conflicted.
powerful.
Yeah.
Convert speed to power. I get it. Like, Dane and DJ have this guy in the top 10. I think Dane's got him like third overall.
Dude, some big names in our industry think he's like literally one of the best players in the draft, which says a lot.
Yeah. And hey, a lot of those people I think probably have great connections like at Georgia as well. So maybe they're telling him like, hey, this kid's he's a great kid. He's only going to get better. He's a workhorse. He's going to work harder. And when that's the case, I mean, you see a lot of the flashes from him. I mean, you wrote it in your blurbs here of what you think of Walker and what he could be. If you're playing him as an off-ball linebacker, I'm out. Like
I just didn't do it for me at all.
So much lower on him. Official measurements for him and athletic testing at the combine will be nice to at least check all those boxes to say, okay, yeah, he is an athletic guy that we've seen a lot of the times on tape, and he could sort of just, like call upon it whenever he wants. That'll be important for an edge rush projection for him, but I'm just a little bit more skeptical that it's not as much of a, just play him at edge and he'll be elite than some other people do. So.
Yeah, combine is huge for me with Walker. It really is. I always am honest about guys that they can fluctuate pretty significantly higher or lower because of the combine. He's a guy I've written down in red ink on a list of guys that it'll matter a lot.
All right, going 21 to 30 here in a second. Before we get to that question for all the good people out there, what's your child's future success look like for you? Whether it's them traveling the world, maybe it's a job that they love, maybe it's just a comfortable lifestyle that they're absolutely loving. Fabric by Gerber Life can help your kids achieve that by allowing you to make contributions to your child's future today with a kids investment account. It gives them the means to pursue their dreams, both big and small, whatever a happy life looks like for them. Fabric by Gerber Life, it was designed by parents for parents to make it easy to plan for and manage your family's financial path. With a kids investment account from Fabric, you can start investing in your child's future today. Whole thing is online. You can manage your child's account right from their phone. Starts with just $20. No contribution limits, tax advantages. Funds are SIPC insured up to $500,000. No commission fees, just a low, flat monthly maintenance fee. Kids can't invest while they're minors, but you can invest in this account to help them on their behalf. Funds can be used on anything. When they're kids, it's tutors, it's tuition, it's sports, it's music classes, things like that. Or when they're older, it's helping them travel. It's a new house, it's a new car, starting a business, whatever it is. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Start investing in your child's future today at meetfabric.com/stock exchange. Meet Fabric, MEET, fabric.com/stock exchange. Portfolios are managed by Fort Washington Investment Advisors Incorporated. Additional services provided by Apex Clearing Corporation. All investing is subject to risk. Learn more at meetfabric.com. Let's go 21 to 30 here. What do we got?
21, Jihad Campbell, linebacker / sometimes pass rusher from Alabama.
I like it.
22, his teammate, Tyler Booker, guard from Alabama.
T-Book.
23, Shadir Sanders, quarterback in Colorado. I'm sure we'll talk about him. 24, Luther Burden, wide receiver, Missouri. 25, Tyleik Williams, defensive line from Ohio State. If you want to hear more about him, when we talked a ton on our defensive line position rankings we just did. Malachi Starks, safety from Georgia. We kind of opened the show on him. James Pierce, the edge rusher from Tennessee at 27. 28, a guy I just watched for the second time. I watched him very early. I watched him a little over summer/early in the year. Then I watched him again in depth last week. Nick Amenawari, safety from South Carolina. 29, Josh Connerly, offensive tackle, Oregon. 30, Jahdae Barron, who we'll talk about more in the corner show from Texas.
So for me, 21 is Mykel Williams, the edge rusher from Georgia. 22, Shamar Stewart, defensive lineman from Texas A&M. 23, Armand Membou, the offensive tackle from Missouri. I got Matthew Golden, the wide receiver from Texas at 24. Omarion Hampton, we talked about him at 25. I got Gray Zabel, the offensive lineman. I think he's an interior offensive lineman. I'd love him at center from North Dakota State. I have him at 26. Nick Scorton from Texas A&M at 27. Darius Alexander, the defensive tackle from Toledo. I have him now at number 28 after going through the defensive line episode, and I've got him all the way up there at number 28. I think he is an absolute stud, especially
ranked 28th, and he's almost turning 28. You love to see.
You know, when it just matches up
together.
When it just matches up with the age, a good combine, and he's going to be right up there matching the age.
I know.
He'll go Benjamin Button with the big board rank versus the age here if he has a good combine. I got Jihad Campbell in this group as well. I have him at 29. I also have Josh Connerly around the same spot at number 30 here. So handful of these guys we've talked a lot about already in previous position ranking episodes. Who's the guy that I wanted to... Oh, we got to talk about Nick Amenawari. So, full transparency here, I haven't really moved him on my rankings. He is so interesting because over summer, like, I didn't even think he could play safety, really. Like, I did not think he moved well enough to play safety, even as a box safety, like a second-level defender. Didn't feel like he moved well enough. Didn't feel like he anticipated well enough. Crazy athlete for his size, no doubt about it. But his 2023, I thought there was a lot of lack of polish. This past year, way better from him. And I haven't gotten to the full eval yet, so I haven't been able to really adjust rankings for him. But you're not the only one who's got him into his top 50 now. You've got him in the top 30 here at 28. Talk to me about Amenawari. I know we'll do safeties in a couple of weeks, but just having him here at number 28, somebody that everybody needs to know.
Yeah, he's legitimately got a shot to go in the first round. I mean, he's over 220 pounds. He's 6'3", obviously a freaks list guy. He's going to just jump through the ceiling at the NFL Combine. I thought what was impressive with him, I still don't think you're far off from Summer. Like, you watch the tape, and a lot of his best plays or comfort moments, he's almost an outside linebacker. But he does have that versatility that I feel like you can match him up against some tight ends. You can play him in coverage and rely on his instincts. He's obviously a big body out there if you want somebody to kind of just run through a blocker's face to blow up a screen. Like, he does give you a little bit of both worlds, where he's the bigger DB or the smaller linebacker, although if he's really 227, that's not even small for an outside linebacker in today's NFL.
He could play there.
That's what's crazy. But why I don't have him in the top 25 or ahead of Starks, because I think there's going to be a lot of debates between him and Starks, who are very different players. I don't think he's a better player than Starks, is he's not fluid like Starks. He's a little stiff in the upper half. The change of direction sometimes, he looks a little tight, but he can come down and play a physical brand of football, and I think he trusts his eyes in coverage, and that's why he made some plays on the ball this year that were really, really impressive. So, Amenawari, like, I think if you have a plan for him and ask him to do different things in different packages, you'll get the most of him rather than just saying, hey, you're a strong safety, or hey, you're a nickel, or hey, you're going to play outside linebacker. Like, the value in him, why he snuck into my top 30, is that there is legitimate versatility in certain packages down by down.
Love it. I love to hear about it. Now, this is the section of the top 50 where the gap starts to get a little bit wider with certain players. For example, you have Tyler Booker at 22. I've got him at 49.
Okay.
You have Matthew Golden at somewhere in the 40s. Where was he? He was 41 for you. I have Matthew Golden at 24. You've got Gray Zabel at 42. I've got him at 26. You're obviously a massive hater for both of these very good football players. So
want nothing to do with them.
No, clearly. Again, not even draftable, it feels like. You got a Patriots big board. It's 22 guys long, and it doesn't really matter
and
after
if they're
that.
gone,
the other guys,
we trade the picks.
They're
Try
not
again next
New England
year.
Patriots.
Oh, man.
So I think the three guys that we should talk about sort of briefly here are those three players. So I'm higher on Matthew Golden. I have him about 20 spots higher, and I have Gray Zabel. I've talked about this before. We haven't gone through the interior offensive line episode, but we did talk about this when we went through the post-Senior Bowl mock draft. I think Gray Zabel is Graham Barton this year. I think that we should be talking about Gray Zabel like we talked about Graham Barton. He goes 26 to the Buccaneers last year. I think that Gray Zabel is a back end of the first round type of plug-and-play interior offensive lineman at the next level. So that's why I got him where I do at 26. And then Matthew Golden, dude, I see too much like Stephon Diggs in his game. I do.
Okay.
Like the route running ability, creating separation. He's got a couple of the one-handed catches this year. I know it's sort of like, all right, it's a breakout year this year and it's a one-year type of a thing, but dude was Texas' go-to receiver this season, basically in all situations. And even though he's a little bit smaller, I think he brings that feistiness and that route running savviness to get open the way that Stephon Diggs did when he was in his prime. So not that Golden's going to step into the NFL and immediately be that top tier version of Diggs, but I think the way that he wins and his play style is just so similar to that type of a player that I'm a little bit higher on him. So let me know, what do you think of Golden and Zabel here as guys who are in your early 40s?
Maybe a simplistic counter, but I don't view them as the athletes that I think maybe you do, where I liked them a lot at the top of the second round. I didn't love them as first round athletes. Barton, I think Zabel's a good athlete. Barton was, I think, a 9.99 RAS guy. Like
fair.
Estimated 4.54 short shuttle at his pro day, which is alien status. I mean, the mean for the short shuttle for interior guys is 4.74, so he blew that out of the water. Three cone was a 7.31. I mean, the mean for the three cone on interior guys is 7.8. Like, Barton was just almost a tight end at times playing interior offensive lineman. I don't know if Zabel will be able to match that, but I think he'll be good. It's more with Golden. I think Golden does everything at the position right. The footwork is calculated, tempo in his routes, tracking, always knows when the ball is supposed to be there and gets his head around for it before the corner does, but not too early. Once again, tracking over the shoulder. I don't think he's fast. I don't think he's slow. I don't think he's fast.
So here's the thing with Diggs. Neither was Diggs. Let me look this up. Hold on. Because I had the same thought as you. And when I was watching him, I was like, dude, he reminds me a lot of Stephon Diggs. And then I went and looked up Stephon Diggs' number. Like, 4.46 40-yard dash?
That's fast, though. I mean,
you don't think Golden's like...
I thought he was more like a 4.5s guy.
Oh, man.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm...
Hey, maybe you're dead wrong.
Maybe I'm just an idiot.
Maybe you're dead wrong. No.
Maybe I'm just an idiot. Wow, Diggs had a wildly unimpressive combine.
Right.
Like, wildly unimpressive. I think he's such a better athlete than these numbers. It blows my mind.
Right. I do agree that I think he's a better athlete than the numbers, but not out of the question. Like, I do think that, again, I think that Diggs is a good athlete, but I don't think he just beats you with athleticism. Like, Diggs just became a really good route runner. He became really good with his feet. He became really good at setting defenders up, whether it was against leverage at the line of scrimmage before the snap or setting themselves up against their leverage when they were deeper down the field. He was just so much more savvy. So the way that Diggs doesn't have to win with his athleticism, I don't think Golden has to win like that either. So
no, I don't think so either. I thought he was a high end. Yeah, I thought he was a guy that should be a good number 2. That he actually, I think he gets characterized as like a slot receiver, and he played outside a ton. Golden, way more. So one I want to ask you about, which it's funny because you're not like that high on him compared to everyone else, but you have Mykel Williams at 21.
Mm-hmm.
I had him in this big board at 45.
Okay.
I think I'm going to be a little higher on him than that at the end because I've been trying to figure out how much the injury mattered this year.
Yeah.
And I didn't factor that into the ranking. He's not going to turn 21 until this summer. He obviously looks like the prototype. I don't think he's very explosive. And the production, whatever, like there is none. So that's a whole nother conversation. But I'm just trying, when a guy's not here we go. Shamar Stewart has had 1.5 sacks each of the last 3 seasons. And he's in my top 20 because I think he's an alien. He's huge. He's long. He moves like a 250-pound edge rusher. He does disrupt a lot of plays. I see it on tape. I think Michael, his run defense floor is completely fine, where I take him in the second round. But I am not going to hope that I ever get what people are dreaming of when they mock him consistently in the top 15 of mock drafts, which, to be fair, you don't have him ranked there in this.
I can't imagine I'm going to be much higher on him than this, even with a great combine. And this is sort of me taking into account that I think he's going to test well. I do think he's going to test explosively. If he doesn't, then I'm probably going to move him down a little bit more, probably to that early second round type of a range, because I think he's an NFL player, right? I think worst comes to worst, he's an edge 2 at the NFL level. But there were enough very splash plays, very much flashes. I will agree with this, but there were enough first step off the line of scrimmage, violent hands over the top, swimming over the player into the backfield. And I go, whoa. I don't think you will. I don't think he will ever be a pass rush type of a specialist. But even if you give me a little bit of that with more regularity, if you are a 6 to 8 sack player a year, but have a very high run defense floor, like, you are very valuable to a team. And that's why, like, him being in the early 20s for me, I'm wondering if when I fully redo my rankings with with all of the film grades and everything kind of thrown in there, I wonder if he comes down a little bit. But I have him here because there were too many plays that I just went, God, that's sick. Like, the hands just move so fast, so violently, so strong that it's hard for me to put him too much lower than this, right? Like, I think about Trayvon Walker, and Walker's a little bit different because Walker was bigger. He was just a certified alien when it came to the combine and everything like that. But the way that you talked about him was a little bit the same. Strong as an ox in run defense, probably won't ever be a great pass rusher for you. I had Walker ranked right around 16 out of his draft class. Now, obviously, he goes number 1 overall. I think a lot of people were higher on him, but like, that's sort of how I saw him. I don't quite see Michael as good as a Trayvon Walker type of a player, but I do think the conversation is similar. So if Michael goes in and blows up the combine, then I think that I'll probably keep him around this range no matter what. If he doesn't test well, if he doesn't test explosively, kind of like you said, because we don't see it a lot on tape, then I'll probably bring him down a little bit. So that's sort of my thought process with Michael Williams and where we're at.
All right, want to do 31 to 40?
Yep, let's do it.
All right, let's rock and roll. 31 for me is Josh Simmons, the offensive tackle from Ohio State. If he gets cleared medically, he will be much higher. 32, kind of the same story. Savon Ravel, the corner from ECU, tore his ACL in September. 33, Caleb Johnson, running back Iowa. 34, Derek Harmon, defensive lineman from Oregon. 35, Travion Henderson, running back Ohio State. 36, his teammate JT Tuimoloau, edge rusher Ohio State. 37, Elijah Arroyo, tight end Miami. 38, another Ohio State player, Donovan Jackson, who is a guard at the next level. Was a guard in a lot of college, just kind of had to help them out in a pinch at left tackle. 39, Jaden Higgins, wide receiver, Ohio State. 40, Bullrush McIntyre, TJ Sanders, defensive lineman, South Carolina.
31 for me, I got Colson Loveland. He was a little bit higher in your rankings, but I think that we'll probably see him the same. Jalen Walker for me is at 32. Demetrius Knight, the linebacker from South Carolina, is at 33. And I haven't done our full off-ball linebacker evals yet to really stack him up against the rest of the class, but I've watched Jalen Walker, I've watched Carson Schweschinger from UCLA, and I've watched Demetrius Knight and gotten their full evals done, and holy hell is Demetrius Knight fun. So I got him at 33. I got Trey Amos, the cornerback from Ole Miss, at 34. Savon Revel from ECU, I have him at 35. Donovan Ezaraku at 36, a guy I love, the edge rusher from Boston College. Alec Iomaner, I still have him in my top 40. I got him at 37, the wide receiver from Stanford. Benjamin Morrison, I fully understand that the hip is everything with him, right? I mean, he had the hip injury where he missed most of this season. I saw somewhere, I can't remember who said this, it might have been Dane, it might have been DJ or somebody said that he had a second surgery on his hip. Now, I don't know if that was a second surgery after the first one from this year, or if it was like, well, he's had hip surgery before, and then
Right.
this year's hip surgery means it was his second hip surgery. That wasn't clear, but if it was a second hip surgery since going out this season, not good. But I do like the tape when he's out there and he's healthy, so I got him at 38. I got Bull Rush McIntyre, TJ Sanders at number 39, and then I have Tyreek Williams at number 40. I think some of the ones that stand out, you got Elijah Arroyo at 37. I absolutely love it. You're a madman, and I absolutely love you for it. Where do I have Arroyo? Probably way too low, to be honest with you. I have him 84. So
Okay.
I've got him 84 sort of because of the rest of the guys in the class, but I mean, he's sick. He might be somebody that I got to move up
I think he's
just
awesome.
on the latest update. Obviously, you've got him in the top 40. You've got a handful of Ohio State guys here. Just a couple of quick thoughts on all of them. Travion Henderson's outside of my top 50. Donovan Jackson is outside of my top 50 as well. And then who is the other one? Oh, JT Tuimoloau. Where do I have him? Did he sneak in? He's at 48 for me, so he's a little bit lower.
Yeah, quick run through all these guys. Travion, he just changes the game at any moment with any touch. You need to kind of be careful pitch count wise with him. You're never going to have him be your, 30, 25, 30 touch kind of guy. But man, it's in the run and pass game how explosive he is. Tuimoloau, big, stout, really good hands. Love the way he brings it against the run. He's got a two-hand swipe. He's got to unlock a little bit more as a pass rusher, but I think he's such a good edge setter that he could be your number 2 on your front, across from a premier pass rusher. Donovan Jackson, I think the guard tape is phenomenal. When he had to play left tackle, it's just not where he should be playing. There's some struggles in pass pro there. But he's very quick as an outside zone run blocker where he gets on his hands up on linebackers right away. And I think that he was phenomenal in their run game. And then, that was all the Ohio State guys. I want to make sure I got them all in that.
Yep. So I think for me, the guys that you don't have in there, Demetrius Knight, who I talked about, I love, man. I mean, he is an absolute bull in a china shop. Like, he is all out at all times. He's going to be one of the older prospects in this class. He started his career at, where was it? Where was that first school? Where was he before? Georgia Tech. He was at Georgia Tech first.
Yes.
And then he played for 4 years there. Really didn't play much. He was actually a dual threat quarterback when he was coming out of high school, and his first year there as a reserve linebacker, he moved over to the linebacker spot. Played basically as a rotational and reserve guy for the next 2 years. Jeff Collins was released or he was no longer the head coach in 2022. So then he transferred over to Charlotte, where he actually got some playing time. He was an animal. He was first team All AAC. Then he transfers over to South Carolina, and man, just he's a standout player. He gives you all out play style, super strong tackler, big dude who's built for the NFL, 6'2", 248 pounds. That's above the 50th percentile, above the 80th percentile for the linebacker position now. Loves the physical aspects of the game, can trigger downhill incredibly quickly, gives you some decent feel for coverage. He's a pretty fast and explosive athlete for his size. The coverage instincts are still growing, but man, he's going to be great for you as a downhill guy. I love this tape a lot. I give him a pretty high late first, early second round grade. So that's how I got him at number 33. Trey Amos, somebody that we're going to talk about when we get to the cornerback conversation. Donovan Izaraku, I think, wins just in such a savvy way on the edge, and I think he's going to be a productive NFL player for a long, long time. My boy Alec Iomaner, I'm not giving up on him. I still think that he is one of the better players in this class, a steady dude, even though Stanford's passing game wasn't very good this past season. So I think those are the standout guys that I got 31 through 40. Who do you got 41 through 50 to round things out?
To close this out, 41, Matthew Golden, the wide receiver from Texas. 42, Gray Zabel, the interior offensive lineman at North Dakota State. Did play tackle there. 43, Mason Taylor, tight end at LSU. 44, Jack Sawyer, edge rusher, Ohio State. 45, Michael Williams, edge rusher, Georgia. 46, Jackson Dart, quarterback, Ole Miss. 47, Alfred Collins, defensive lineman, Texas. 48, Jack Besh, wide receiver, TCU. 49, Shamar Turner, defensive lineman, Texas A&M. 50, Josiah Stewart, the undersized but explosive edge rusher from Michigan.
So I think we'll probably round it out with a quarterback conversation. 41, I have Jack Besh in here as well.
Nice.
I've got him at 41. 42, I got Xavier Watts, the safety from Notre Dame. 43, Landon Jackson, the edge rusher from Arkansas. 44, Princely Uman Mielen from Ole Miss. You want to talk about, so the way that you sort of talked about James Pierce Jr. a little bit reminded me a lot of Prince Leamon Mielen, who you maybe he's not a 3-down player for you, but on those plays where he's pinning his ear back, whew, he's sick. Jack Sawyer, I have at 45. Do we both have Jack Sawyer at 45? Oh, you got him at 44.
44.
So close.
Yep.
So close. Shamar Turner,
I'm going to tell him that.
I have in the top 50.
I have you at 44. Trevor Sikkema has you at 45. Oh,
that bum. I have Shamar Turner from Texas A&M as well in here. I got him at 46. Shedeur Sanders I have here at 47. JT Tuimoloau at 48. Tyler Booker, guard from Alabama, I got a 49. And then Alfred Collins from Texas sneaking in here at number 50. So you got Jackson Dart at number, where was he, 46. You had Shedeur Sanders at 23. So I'm just lower on the quarterbacks than you are.
Yeah.
You had Cam Ward at 8. I have him at 19. You had Shedeur Sanders at 23. I had him at 47. You got Jackson Dart at 46. Where do I have Dart? I have Dart at... Where is he? Damn, I gotta find this now. Okay, quarterbacks. Where is Dart? I got him at 122 right now. So
okay.
I got him way lower, outside of my top 50, obviously outside of my top 100. Let's talk about these quarterbacks. So is Jackson Dart sort of... Now, he's your QB3, right? He was your QB3 when we went through the QB episode. He was my QB... I think like 12 or 13. So we're not any different here than we were when we were going over the quarterback episode. But you see Dart as somebody who, what are you thinking here? Like, just this is the day 2 flyer that you take a chance on in this class?
Yeah, once again, like we've been pretty honest. We don't love this quarterback class. But if I was going to take a guy on day 2, redshirt him for a year and try to develop him, it would be Dart. I really like his athleticism. I think that you just can't underrate that over the last 2 years, he's run for 66 first downs. I think he throws with really good touch. Obviously, he's been a really productive player, a multi-year starter. And I think he's also taken care of the football better as the years have gone on. I've said before, over the last 3 seasons, he cut his fumbles down from 7 to 5 to 3. There is inconsistencies that'll just drive you nuts. Like, he will miss layups, and then he'll make a throw where you're just like, how the hell did you make that throw? He has no experience under center, less than 30 snaps under center. Like, he needs a redshirt year. The offense he will be transitioning to will be nothing like the offense that he has been operating for Lane Kiffin. Mm-hmm. And the play speed on the field, the processing speed is going to be an adjustment for him. I'm not saying he can't do it. I don't know if he can do it, but I know he has the physical tools to play the position, whether it's touch at all 3 levels of the field as a thrower, mobility to pick up first downs with his legs. But I just think the actual speed of the NFL, like in terms of his awareness and taking sacks, there's some really bad sacks on tape, and that's when things were slow for him. He was playing too slow. That's going to be amplified at the next level early on, so that's why I think he needs time. So I would take him middle to the end of the second round and see what happens. I'm not on the bandwagon of like, this guy is going to sneak into the end of the first round and bet your house on him. I think too much risk with him. He might.
Independent of where we have him ranked, he might sneak into the first round.
He very well might, but I wouldn't be doing that.
All right, there we go. Those are our top 50s. I read mine, right? I did everything on mine. Yeah,
yes, you did.
Mine. Okay, just make
because we had the Jack Sawyer, right.
The
great Jack Sawyer.
Yeah, I think he's undraftable. You obviously, think he's a top 5
I have him one spot higher,
so
I think he should go 3rd overall.
Yeah, future Hall of Famer, gold jacket. Might as well just get it tailored right now. We would love to hear from you guys. The conversation that we had here in our
jacket Sawyer. That's a good nickname for him.
That is not bad.
It's not good, but it's not bad.
We could work on it. We could workshop it. We would love to hear from you guys as well. The conversation that we had here with our top 50s, but also maybe some of the players that we mentioned that we didn't have a little bit of a back and forth about. You could fire off some questions in the comments. We will be able to answer those as best we can. Also, maybe some players that did make the top 50 that you're kind of surprised about. Hey, I thought that this guy would be in your top 50. You can obviously see mine all the way through 300 that we've got on the PFF big board. So guys that are a little bit lower, ask some questions about it. We'd love to have some back and forth, see how you guys see these prospects. Best way to do that, youtube.com/@NFL Stock Exchange. If you're audio only, hit us up on Instagram and Twitter as well, @Tampa Bay Trey, @Connor J. Rogers. You could also follow the show on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok @NFL SE Show. The shipment for the hats The order has been placed, I should say. So we're still a couple of weeks away from us getting those, but the hats are coming. I've seen a couple of people tweet at us and post some comments about hats. We will let you know when we get the hats in, and you guys have a chance to get your hands on those, which would be really cool. I think we're really excited. I'm super excited about them. I think they're going to be
awesome.
Connor, got anything else before we get out of here?
No, we are back on the grind. Corner episode soon, which will be a doozy. We haven't talked about the corners in this draft outside the top guys, so this will be it'll be really good for us to finally have this conversation.
Very excited to get to that a little bit later in the week. For Connor Rogers, I'm Trevor Sikkema saying thank you guys so much for watching and listening to the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. We'll see you guys next time.